Hey there. Um, Been a while since I posted on YouTube. I think my last video was kind of embarrassingly breathless unboxing of this OP1. I was pretty excited. Uh, and I promised in that video that I'd be making some, videos of me making music with this thing. And then I fell off the face of the YouTube map. Partially because I've been busy, partially because the OP1 has been a little more difficult to just pick up and make music with than I expected. I watched a lot of videos about it. It's looks very intuitive and everything. I thought it was going to be easy to pick up. There's a learning curve here, and I didn't want to make videos. Before I had some idea what I was doing with it at least. So I've taken some time. I've also just been busy, but I've taken some time to learn how to use it a little bit at least. I'm certainly no expert. And this is my first video I actually managed to put together. Also working on figuring out, how to shoot these videos, camera angle and lighting and all that. And I was hoping to go for like a more artistic angle, but this is what I ended up with so that you could really see what I'm doing. It's not very artistic at all, I know. So let me know what you think about that in the comments if you don't mind. Here I'm going through, I found this really cool website. I'll put a link in the description that generates random synth patches for the OP1 that are really easy to load on. So I've got 50 of them loaded on here. That seems like a good number. You have to manage your memory on the OP1 kind of. I initially had 100 and then I couldn't save anything, so that kind of sucked. So 50 seems like a good number. And so I got 50 random patches on here, and a lot of the time I'll just kind of flip through them and see if one of them inspires me. I found this kind of horn sound, trumpet sound that inspired me a little bit, so that's what we're going to go with. I didn't have any musical idea here when I sat down of what I was going to do. This is partially just even, a camera test to make sure everything's working. But it looks like everything worked. I record these voiceovers after the fact. The sound came through. I do kind of think that, I suspect that the sound, here I'm just going to record the simple little theme that we'll base this jam on. I just came up with this on the spot. Nothing special. I think that the OP1 sounds better if you copy the audio files off of it and play them back on your computer or other device than coming out of the headphone jack like we're listening to right here. I think it sounds a little thin through the headphone jack. I put a bit of EQ and a bit of compression on this in my VideoSoft editing software, but really this is pretty much how it sounds coming out of the OP1. Not bad. It's not amazing either. Here I'm going to use the Endless sequencer to just lay down a nice steady hi-hat line, eighth notes I think. There's so many different tools in the OP1, and it's both so powerful and like so limited. It's got all these different tools, but they're all pretty limited, as individual tools. And so I think the limitations are good, actually. It's not a knock on it. Limitations are what make an instrument in a lot of ways. But just figuring out how to put all these pieces together, a lot of the time it's not that straightforward, I've found. But it's very capable. There's ways to do almost anything you want to do. It's just figuring out the best way to achieve it on the OP1 sometimes can be a little challenging. But fun too. I'm really having a good time with this thing. I've done a bunch of little jams on it. This is the first one I've actually gotten everything together to record. I'm just going to play this bass and snare line in live. There's no real quantization on the OP1, which is both challenging and inspiring, I think. Obviously, if you use one of the sequencers, that's totally quantized. And you can set swing and all that kind of good stuff. But there's no way to play something and then quantize it after the fact. which is a pretty standard workflow, I think, for a lot of people in a typical DAW, for instance. It just forces you to think about things differently, kind of interestingly. Here I'm just looking for a good sound. You can't see my hands blocking the screen, obviously. Something I'll have to think about. Here, I was just looking for a good octave to play this sound in. I kind of liked the way it sounded, and then I was like, hey man, it sounds cool when you switch octaves. So I decided to use that as an effect. And the way the OP1 kind of, works with audio instead of, MIDI or something, I think encourages this kind of behavior, where, you can record any sound that it's making, it can capture. It can resample, essentially. So here, using the... First, I have to get a clean track, obviously. Managing tracks is another topic I'm going to talk about in a second here. But to finish my thought on, using these octave buttons, they're not meant to be a performance tool necessarily. I mean, obviously they can be, but I use them as a performance tool here, which is interesting. Not all devices would be able to capture that you're doing this. That's a kind of a neat effect, I think. I like it. So that's what I went with. Hopefully I can get this recorded. There's no undo button, which a lot of people, kind of don't like. I feel their pain. Here, I would have liked to be able to undo. Instead, you have to just delete the whole thing, that whole track. Not that different, net for this operation, but there's definitely times, especially when you're overdubbing, that you wish you could undo. There's ways, though, to manage your tape such that you can give yourself kind of an undo history. I watched a number of videos by OP1 German Style, another channel on YouTube, and I picked up a technique for managing my tape from him. He's actually doing a little more complicated with the stereo mix than I'm bothering with here. But this idea of kind of, it's easy to copy and paste on this thing, and using that and the length of the tape is kind of a history. It's totally possible to have, a history of all the tracks that you recorded by themselves, and still build up, a lush, multi-layered, mix. And I'll probably do a video just on that subject at some point. My technique for doing that on here. It's a lot of stuff to remember. Like you mix things here like I'm doing to bounce some tracks and have them be at the right, relative levels. Then you got to remember, though, you got to go back into the mixer and set your levels back to normal when you're recording the next track. You got to remember, are you in overdub mode or not? Like, I've ruined a lot of tracks by having the overdub input on by accident, or not having it on when I needed it on. And then when I overdub, I like to turn the recording volume all the way up, the input volume all the way up, the level, I guess you'd say. But when I'm recording new instruments on fresh tracks, I actually like to have that down. So I just turn it down there and turn the overdub off. I'm trying to get in that habit, right? So I don't screw up anymore. So I'm just still looking for stuff to add to this thing, really. It's coming out okay. Kind of like some bass on this, I think. This is a weird random track. Doesn't seem to have any pitch at all. I'm not sure exactly what is causing it not to have pitch, but it's not going to work. So maybe we'll go and look at some, I gotta set my levels again. Maybe we'll go, just look at some of the factory presets, see if we can find a good bass sound, I think. I use this one a lot. A lot of the time you don't need a super fancy bass sound. I'm a bass player, so I mean, I get the importance of bass, but a lot of the time you just need the sub in there, So I use this one fairly frequently because it doesn't have a lot of character. It's just kind of low end. Fits with almost anything. Just trying to get a little funky something or other going. Like the keyboard feels good playing these like kind of 16th note lines, It's really nice and responsive, and the keys have a good kind of tactile feedback when you press them. They feel good, which is nice. So I decided to try to use the endless sequencer here to get this line in, and it doesn't come in on the 1 because there's a fairly lengthy pickup, really. I didn't want to sit there and do the math to figure out where the pickup actually comes in. Wouldn't have been that hard, but I decided instead to just record the pickup starting on the 1 of the sequencer and then start playing the sequence at the right spot. This is another trick I found with the sequencers. If you want to play shorter notes, like 16th notes, a lot of the time you have to modify the envelope of the sound to play shorter so that you get some distinction between those 16th notes. By default, the sequencers seem to hold down a note for like an 8th note length rather than a 16th note length. So you can force them to play 16th notes by shortening the envelope, the sustain of the envelope specifically. And here I was trying to figure out how do I really record this. Like, that's the idea. But this, I have to take my finger off right away at the end of that 8th note. Otherwise it'll loop, and I don't want it to loop because that's only 8 16th notes out of 2 measures, I think. So then I was thinking, okay, so I need to leave myself some blank space at the end of this sequence. And so I did that just by going past 8 all the way to 16. And now it fits. A little cut off there at the end, but I think I just roll with it. It's fine. I doubled it 1 octave lower just to fatten it up a little bit. I don't even know if that really comes through, but it's worth a shot. Didn't cost me anything. Time. So yeah, here I'm doing that. Basically the idea is every time you record a track, you lift the entire thing and drop it twice. So you get what you had, and then you get what you had again, right? A duplicate of what you had. And then on the duplicate, you mix down some tracks to give yourself some room and record the new track. And then, if you go back over the length of the tape, you've got a history of all the tracks that you added separately. So if you wanted to go back and grab, say, that original drum track and bring it back at the end or something by itself, well, that would be hard because I've mixed it in with a bunch of other stuff at this point. But I could still go back to the I could still go back to the, you know, what am I trying to say? I could still go back to the track where I originally recorded it, because that's still on the tape here, and I could grab it from there and bring it back later. So that's the idea with the tape management technique that I'm using. So there's a lot of, you know, I've gotten pretty quick with it. It's still like kind of, you know, this manual process I have to do every track, which is a bit of a pain. But I've gotten pretty used to it already. It's not that big a deal. It doesn't take very long. And I was thinking, you know, the initial drum track there sounds a little thin. Maybe fatten it up with the second track of some kind. Wasn't sure what I wanted to add. Just different sounds. Maybe some kind of a different polyrhythm of some kind or something. Looking for a good sound and a good idea here at the same time. Making myself a little room on tape. Make sure my levels are all even. Before I record, make sure my overdub is off. I'm going to give it a shot. That wasn't very on beat. Let's try that again. Practice it a couple times. Punch in. No, that still sucks. I think part of my problem here was I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Which I think I realized here. I was like, yeah, maybe I need something completely different. Oh, that's kind of cool, more of an electronic. So I just decided to play around with this sound for this kit for a bit. See if I can come up with something. Playing pretty much the same line I was playing. I was thinking maybe something different would be better. Maybe some kind of 4 on the floor thing here. I was thinking maybe something, you know, like more of a little disco-y kind of thing. Yeah, I think I like that. Let's record that. Let's try and play it right, though. Not bad. We're almost done with this. I'd like to add a little more sizzle of some kind. Maybe this little cymbal here on the ands. How would you record that? How would you do that in the sequencer? Yeah, that's how. I should be able to just start it on the 1. Here I knew I was almost done. So I broke my rule of separating out all my tracks and mixed the bass snare, bass clap, and this little hi-hat or whatever it is the same. So that's it. I'm going to play it out from the beginning. Still figuring out how to do the kind of performance aspect of this thing, so be gentle. Yeah, this is my first OP1 session. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe if you want. I'm going to be doing more of these, so maybe I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.